a real substantial issue. You know, have the Trumpians sent religion straight to hell in America is my title here. And Robert Jones writes a thing called Religious Dispatches, kind of a newsletter. And he looked into the merger between the white supremacy movement in the United States and the white evangelical movement in the United States and Trump's MAGA movement. And it's pretty shocking stuff. I mean, it's actually very concerning stuff. Did you know that there was an entire contingent of the traitors who showed up on January 6th, people who believed themselves to be patriots? They believed Donald Trump when he told them that the Democrats had stolen the election, quack, quack, quack. You know, black people in the cities, complete with his video of Ruby, you know, down in Atlanta. Apparently believe this. They called themselves the Jericho March and took buses to Washington, D.C. They were part of this. His report, this is actually out of a report by the University of Alabama's Religious Studies Department that was done in conjunction with the Smithsonian Institution. And they write, this is the project, the two leaders of the project, Michael Altman and Jerome Kopolsky. We contend that religion was not just one aspect of the attack on the Capitol, but rather it was a thread that weaves through the entirety of the events of January 6th. This Jericho March, they write, and again, I'm quoting from this study that's published in part by the Smithsonian Institution. The Jericho March was imitating the siege of the city of Jericho by the Israelites described in the book of Joshua in the Hebrew Bible. The day before the attack, Christianity Today, the magazine, Christianity Today, reported that this Jericho March group was attending January 6th to, quote, pray for a Trump miracle. They cited Beth Moore, a Southern Baptist author and Bible teacher, and First Amendment lawyer David French as being among the few willing to speak out against the ways in which the evangelical community has canonized Trump. This being, consequential because it's like the exception is now proving the rule. I mean, every now and then, just like you got Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, you got a couple of Republicans willing to stand up and say Trump is a fascist. They may not use that word, but in essence, what he's trying to do is the antithesis of American values. Similarly, there are a few people within the church who are standing up and saying, this is the antithesis of what Jesus would have done, and certainly the historic teachings of Christianity. But Jeffrey Goldberg, for example, who writes for The Atlantic, interviewed a whole bunch of people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th for a piece that he did for The Atlantic. And repeatedly, now keep in mind, many of these people showed up carrying crosses, carrying Christian iconography, using Christian phrases. Goldberg said that he heard phrases like, quote, it's all in the Bible. Well, yeah, if you think the modern D.C. has become Sodom and Gomorrah, for example, well, yeah, that's in the Bible. Actually, most conservatives who cite Sodom and Gomorrah obviously have never read the Bible. Something I actually did. I've read it cover to cover 4 times. But in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, God punished them for not being charitable, for not being progressives. You didn't care for strangers. You didn't feed your people. You didn't care for but in any case, they say it's all in the Bible. They'll say they told Jeffrey Goldberg, this has been predicted. Right? Yeah, it's all in Revelation or in Isaiah or in Jeremiah. They'll say Donald Trump is in the Bible. And they say, get yourself ready. This is this Christianized movement, this Trump movement, using and exploiting the name of Christ and the words and teachings of Jesus, exploiting that to do the exact opposite of what Jesus taught us to do. I mean, in Matthew 25 is pretty explicit about it. It's literally the only place in the Bible where the disciples came to Jesus and said, how do we get to heaven to hang out with you? And he said, in the last days, I'll be sitting there judging, separating the goats from the sheep. The goats are going off to hell. The sheep are going to heaven with me. And he said, he said that those who did not, he said, you did not give me water when I was thirsty. You did not give me food when I was hungry. You did not heal me when I was sick. You did not visit me when I was in prison. Off to hell with you. And if you did, and those of you who did feed me when I was hungry and gave me water and visited me in prison and healed me when I was sick and clothed me when I was naked, you get to go to heaven with me. And that freaked out the disciples. I mean, I go back and read Matthew 25. It's fascinating. It freaked them out because they said to him, we've never seen you hungry. We've never seen you in prison. We've never seen you sick. How can we get to heaven? We never had an opportunity to do these things. And he says, as you do to the least among us, you have done unto me. I mean, it's literally the definition of modern progressive thinking. And yet, that theology, that religion has been hijacked by these neo-fascists and Trump hoppers, and they're exploiting this core religious impulse that I think all of us have deep inside us. It expresses in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it expresses just in our love for our partner, our spouse, our children, or our pets. Sometimes it expresses itself in the awe we feel when we walk out on a dark night and look up at the stars. Sometimes it expresses itself, in church during a religious service. I mean, it's just different for everybody, but it's deep inside us. And they are taking this and turning it into this horrible political thing. Sarah K. Burris is writing about this over at Raw Story. She notes, the evolution among white Christian evangelicals to Trumpism is part of another trend showing a growing racism index among the group, among Christian evangelicals. And then she cites an Associated Press exit poll done by a company called Votecast, where they found that the median score on the racism index was 78 out of 100. About 78%, I believe, if I'm interpreting this writing correctly, of the white Christian evangelicals are at least in part motivated in their politics by racism, or at least by racial fear, or whatever you want to call that. I think racial fear and racism are the same thing, frankly. She goes on to note, the researchers tracked the support for January 6th attackers beginning in February of 2021, which is just, a couple of weeks after it happened. And over 7 months, this is Sarah Burris writes this, over 7 months support for prosecuting the attackers among the true believers. Over a 7-month period, that support dropped 22%. This is support for prosecuting people. So, in other words, they asked Christian evangelicals right after January 6th, should these people who trashed the Capitol and tried to overthrow our government, should they go to jail? 76% said yes. 7 months later, they asked them again. And now only 54% said yes, they should go to jail. They asked these white Christian evangelicals right after January 6th, earlier last year, they asked them, do you support the people who attacked the Capitol? 13% of the white evangelicals said yes. They asked them the same question again, do you support these people who attacked our Capitol? Asked them that a month or so ago. It's now up to 27%. More than a quarter of all the white evangelicals that they interviewed now support the attackers. 76% of them are now saying, and by the way, they should not be prosecuted for anything. Perry and Whitehead, these researchers believe, Sarah Burris writes, that the reason for increased support among the Christian nationalist community comes in part from their devotion to Donald Trump. To make matters worse, other researchers have found that Christian nationalists seem more inclined to buy into conspiracy theories like those around COVID-19 vaccine and QAnon world. I guess at a certain level that makes sense. If you are willing to believe in the supernatural, believe that, God's Son came to earth and died for our sins and rose after 3 days, none of those things comport with science. If you're willing to believe those, then if somebody comes along with something that's a real credible theory that's kind of wrapped in religion also, well, okay, I'll believe that too. But it is just the QAnon world, the vaccine conspiracies, the Donald Trump conspiracies, all of this. This is very sad, very dangerous stuff. And I don't know what to do about this, frankly, other than pointing it out, which is why I'm talking about it right now. I do think that just like the Republican Party is going through a period of extreme stress right now, and I hope has an awakening. You see little bits of it here and there. Liz Cheney. I think that the same thing is happening in the white evangelical community, in the church, as it were. And I think the same thing is happening in the conservative Catholic community. And, how we're going to make it through, how we're going to be on the other side of this is, I think, an open question in those regards. But it may end up being a healthy process. Over the short term, though, it's just got to be really, really tough on these people. There was another piece I read, I think it was in the Times a week or so ago, about all the pastors who are leaving their churches because the right-wing crazies are taking over the churches.